President, please be seated.
អង្គជំរាបប្រកាសបន្តកិច្ចដំណើរការ
The court is back in session. Do you have something to address the court? You may now have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I have a request for clarification in relation to the testimony of the civil party. I've listened of course, with great interest to whatever the civil party was testifying to this afternoon. However, I can also, we can all observe that the events that he is describing are not part at all of the closing order. His civil party application is not being referred to in the closing order. I know the Chamber has been willing to allow testimony if it maybe goes to a certain policy. However, what we are hearing this afternoon is very factual, very concrete evidence of alleged events somewhere on an island, which, as I said, is not part at all of the closing order. So we are now getting too detailed, in my opinion, into the events that happened, let alone the question whether the civil party really should be testifying as he is. But I think we have a problematic situation. Now we have the closing order. That is the indictment against which our client and Kusampan have to defend themselves against. There's no mentioning at all of whatever happened on that island and subsequently. So I think this is a problematic situation in terms of knowing in advance what the accused should be defending themselves against. So my request for clarification is such: are we not going way too much into the details of the alleged events rather than hearing just only harm being brought upon this particular civil party? So the question, very clear, the events described, the detailed events described by this civil party is outside of the scope of the closing order, since this island, Tambov Island, is not mentioned at all in the closing order.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to make a motion to request further time to examine this civil party. But I would like to avail myself of this opportunity to speak to respond to the objections of our colleague Kope. The answer is in what he has said, that you have decided, as in line with the practice of this chamber, to hear witnesses and civil parties, including on the issues they are testifying to, and I'm referring to Annex Document E301/9.1.1, which lists the paragraphs of the closing order seizing the chamber of case 002/02. We have a number of paragraphs in which the testimony of this civil party is relevant to the ascertainment of the truth, outside paragraphs 213 and 215 on the policy and acts committed against the Vietnamese in line with the closing order, or paragraphs 791 to 796. And in the annex, the chamber is against, sees in respect of case 002/02, and we also have the paragraph relating to genocide, 1348. We are asking the chamber to continue the practice it has adopted since the beginning of this trial, to allow the civil party to testify to all of the facts as he wishes. And I would say that each of the parties will subsequently assess the testimony of this person and determine how it would like the chamber to assess the evidence that is being presented before you today. So I would request that you should act in accordance with the practice of this court and allow the civil party to continue testifying, and we should therefore allow the civil party to express himself, and you have a number of paragraphs in the closing order that would enable you to consider that their testimony or the testimony of the civil parties is relevant to the ascertainment of the truth. And to return to my motion regarding Mr. Abdun, we started rather late, and given the fact that he is somewhat tired, we would like you to grant us 20 additional minutes, Mr. President, so that we can also give the co-prosecutor sufficient time to put questions to Mr. Park Jun. So, Mr. President, we are requesting 20 additional minutes for the civil parties and the Office of the Co-Prosecutors. Thank you.
President, you have the floor now. International Deputy Co-Prosecutor.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good afternoon to you, Your Honors, and all the parties. I would like to respond to the rather tardy objection made by the defense counsel. I know that the defense has been aware for a very long time now that civil parties and witnesses were slated for this particular segment. Your chamber will hear civil parties. Of course, that doesn't concern only Preveng or Svairing. It concerns other parts of Cambodian territory. And the defense should have raised these issues as soon as they received the names of the civil parties and witnesses due to testify in regard to this segment. Secondly, in the closing order, it's not only Svairing, and we have witnesses who have also testified to facts that occurred in Siem Reap, and I believe the same objection was made earlier, unless I am mistaken. Of course, these testimonies of persons who witnessed what happened to Vietnamese all over the national territory of Cambodia could be useful if we are to know the policy vis-à-vis the Vietnamese, that is the policy of DK. That was mentioned in the closing order, and it was stated that it was a national policy as opposed to a regional policy. So there are many other locations and regions mentioned, and they did not, of course, mention the specific events on that island, but that notwithstanding, we consider that this evidence can be useful in demonstrating the policy and the nature of the widespread attacks and referred to as crimes against humanity, that is, attacks against the civilian population, and in this particular case, against the Vietnamese. I thank you. This is all I wanted to say.
President, you have the floor now. Counsel for Mr. Kisampon.
Oui, merci, Monsieur le
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Following the remarks made by the civil party lawyers and the international co-prosecutor, it is important for me to make this motion now. If additional time is granted to the civil parties and the OCP, we, the defense, will also need additional time. As the prosecutor has said, the case law of this chamber and the civil party has also reminded us of that. Doesn't give us much room to grant the objection made by the third parties. There are facts that are not mentioned specifically in the closing order. That is the reason why our request for additional time is all the more founded. the facts on which we are supposed to examine the civil parties is quite concise. When we read the documents regarding the civil party, we cannot anticipate the testimony that is being made before this chamber. Under these circumstances, I would like to inform the chamber upfront that the measures to be taken if need be, and that we will also need additional time in view of the new facts that are being adduced before this chamber.
President, I now hand over the floor to Judge Lavench to address the requests by the parties. You have the floor now, Judge Lavench.
Oui, merci.
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, as regards the objection made by the non-chair defense, the chamber, in fact, notes that this objection is tardy and so does not grant that objection. The chamber is of the view that the testimony of this civil party is important because it will enable us to determine whether there was a policy that existed at the level of the entire nation regarding measures taken against the Vietnamese. As regards the application for additional time, the chamber notes that the witness testified for about 25 minutes before the lunch break. So the chamber will grant the lead co-lawyers and the co-prosecutors up to the end of this session this afternoon, and if need be, tomorrow morning we will grant the defense additional time.
President, thank you. So it is clear now for everyone. You may resume your questioning, lawyer for civil parties. You have the floor.
Mr. Prakdern, just before we broke up for the break, you were telling the court that on the day that you were permanently separated from your wife, the CPK cadre gathered 7 mixed marriage families at Tamuf Island at night time, and that 2 adolescent cadre escorted the group for about 10 kilometres, at which point the Vietnamese people in the mixed marriage group and the Khmer people were separated into 2 separate groups. You said that your son went with your wife. Just a point of clarification about how many children there were in the group that day.
Answer. I would like to make a clarification regarding the children. I saw only 2 children. One belonged to mine and another one belonged to another family. The child, my child, was allowed to go with my wife. And as I was told, the children were thrown up into the air and they were killed afterwards with the bayonet. Some of us were discussing about the loss of family members, and I sometimes was not well after hearing about the discussion of the loss of family members.
So is it correct to say that the other child, the child who was not yours, went with the Vietnamese group?
Answer. Actually, another child was with the Khmer group.
Was it because the child's father was Vietnamese and the child's mother was Khmer?
Answer. The Vietnamese husband were taken away and killed. And for women who were Khmer, they were allowed to have the child with them.
At the point at which you were separated from your wife, did you have any opportunity to speak to any of the cadre who were with you?
Answer. During the night of torture and killing, I did not dare discuss any matters. I went to the direction where I was told to go.
Were you able to say anything to your wife before she was separated from you?
Answer. Let me tell the court, we did not have detailed discussion at that time, since we were required to walk separately, and when we reached the destination, we were separated from each other.
Did you ask the cadre whether you could stay with your wife?
Answer. No, I did not make the request. Concerning my child, I did make a request that I wanted to have the child with me. The comrade at that time said that I did not need to feed my child, and the cadres reassured me that I needed not to feel worried about my child, because my child would be under care of other people.
Do you know where the Vietnamese group were taken to?
Answer: I was told that these Vietnamese people had been taken away and killed. I learned the information the next morning. They did not use the term kill at that time. They used the word smash, and I was told that those people had been taken away and smashed, and we can draw the conclusion that if one was smashed, it meant that he or she was killed.
Who told you that the Vietnamese people were smashed?
Answer: Comrade Hum, the unit chief of mine, told me. He tried to console me the next morning that my wife and the child had been killed, and that comrade blamed me why I married the Vietnamese wife. I did not have anything to say, and I was trying to answer to his question. And I told that comrade that the regime, the former regime, did not ban me from marrying a Vietnamese woman. And I said at that time why the late King Father did not ban the marriage with Vietnamese women.
What did he say about how they were killed?
Answer: He told me that the Vietnamese people hands were tied to the back. They were not interrogated, and those people were beaten into the grave where they were dug up, and the grave depth was about 0.6 or 7 meters.
Did he tell you when these people were killed?
Answer: We had to travel along the way, and we left the place at 6 p.m. From my estimate, we arrived at the destination at around 3:30, said civil party.
Do you know if they were killed immediately after your group separated from their group, or was it some other time?
Answer: That comrade told me that those Vietnamese people were smashed immediately after they were separated from my group. They were killed at the pit.
And what did he tell you about how the children were killed?
Answer: The explanation is that the children were thrown up into the air, and when they fell down, they were killed with the bayonet.
After you were separated from the Vietnamese group, what happened in the Khmer group?
Answer: After the killings, I was put into a unit responsible for supervising women at the field. There was another man who got married with the Vietnamese woman as well. I was with him at the time after the killings. We were on a house for 1 week, so we were allowed to eat whatever other people ate. I could have fish and rice at that time, and after that 7 days, I resorted to normal rice.
After the Vietnamese spouses in the mixed marriage groups were taken and killed, were there any more Vietnamese people on Ta Move Island?
Answer: no, no more Vietnamese. All Vietnamese had been sent away and smashed. Those who spoke with accent and those who were suspected to be Vietnamese, they were sent away and smashed. There was one incident that one Chinese person was also sent away since that person spoke not clearly Khmer. That person was in a different cooperative, and the cooperatives area were situated close to each other.
Now, the last time you saw your wife was at the end of 1977. I'd like to talk now about your remaining children. You said that your youngest son, who was 1.5 years old at the time, was taken with your wife and your mother-in-law at the time that you were separated. What happened to your other children, your other 5 daughters?
Answer: the remaining children, that is the 5 daughters, the first daughter was sent into a cooperative, and the second daughter was also sent into a cooperative in a mobile unit. Concerning the third daughter, I was told that she was sent into a training session. The fourth daughter was put into a children unit, and that child did not have anything to eat but the morning glory, and she had no medicines when she was sick, and perhaps 20 children died every day in the unit because of hunger and because of sickness. Some children died of diarrhea, and some other would be buried, although they did not die yet at the time.
When was the last time that you saw these daughters, the three who you say passed away?
Answer: let me tell the court that the last time I did not meet my daughter the last time. I only heard of the information that they had died, and 2 of my children survived. One was Mikaba. I was told that some of my daughters died in the cooperative and in mobile units in other cooperatives.
Do you know how your 2 daughters who survived did manage to survive?
The 2 daughters who actually survived because sometimes I secretly sent some dry fish to them, and that happened every 3 or 4 days. So I gave the fish to someone who delivered the fish supplied, and I had to give half to him. So sometimes I kept sending them food, including beans. Sometimes I cooked the beans at night time, and then I secretly sent the beans to them. And for that reason, they could survive. And I named them in a funny way so that they could survive.
Your two daughters who'd survived, did they look Vietnamese or did they look Cambodian?
The two daughters who are still living today, you could see that they looked purely Khmer, as they have dark complexion as mine.
Now, you said that after the separation of the Vietnamese from the mixed marriage families, there were no more Vietnamese at Tamuf Island. Is that right?
But
At that time, there was no longer any Vietnamese left.
Your Honours, that concludes my questioning for this civil party.
I'd like now to hand the floor to the co-prosecutor to put question to the civil party, and you may proceed.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Good afternoon, civil party. I would like to ask some follow-up questions to what you have already talked about, and then later on go on to the subject of arranged marriages through Ankar. Now, just now, you said that your wife was born in the village of Kampong Pra, in the commune of Chnok Tru, in the district of Boribo. Now, do you know when your in-laws actually settled in Cambodia? Did they arrive well before the birth of your wife?
Deputy co-prosecutor, please put the question again to the civil party, as he may have forgotten it.
Yes, sir. Just now you said that your wife was born in the same village as you at Kampong Pra. So how long before she was actually born did her family settle within that region?
My wife was born in my village and we went to school together. However, I did not know about the background of her parents.
Très bien. Alors,
Very well. You had 6 children born 75, 77 and other years. You had them with your wife Busamban. How did you bring them up? According to Khmer traditions or according to Vietnamese traditions? Or perhaps a mixture of both?
I allowed my children to go to school so that they could study the Khmer literature. However, we still practice the tradition and culture of my wife. And later on, of course, you know, the regime fell and the genocidal regime took over.
est-ce que sous le régime
So, under the Khmer Rouge regime, was all of these traditions, culture, clothing and so forth banned?
Not only the culture and the clothing were banned, even for the Khmer culture, we were not allowed to wear a white dress or checkered shirt. We had to wear black cotton clothes so that we were considered to be part of the revolution.
Can I turn then to the tragic episode when your wife, your mother-in-law and your son were killed? I think this was near Tunaroka in the commune of Melun. Do you know precisely who executed them? Forgive my mispronunciation of the places, says the speaker. Do you know who executed them, or did you learn about it afterwards?
I did not know about who actually killed them, and I knew that a woman who was about 18 years old who led us from the village to the killing site, and a male cadre was about a similar age, but I did not witness their killing. Only next morning when the cadre said they had been killed during the night and that I should focus on working, and that later on I could propose a Cambodian woman to get married through Angkar. And that's the explanation given to me, so that I should not worry anymore about the wife, that I should only focus on the work.
les deux
You mentioned 2 young people who were going along with your group of mixed families, a boy of 14 and a girl of 18. Were these cadres, as you say, or were they schlop or militia members?
They were neither cadre nor militia, they were actually soldiers. And I believe that they were part of the soldiers who were assigned to take them and to execute them, though I did not witness the execution. And there was a well-known comrade Bon who was the executioner in the area. For example, if a woman who committed a moral misconduct, the person would be sent to Comrade Bon, and that would be the end of her life as she would be executed by this comrade Bon. And he was born at the area of Wat on Teh Bang, and everybody was so scared of him.
D'accord.
So Comrade Bon was known to be an executioner in that region. Am I correct?
Yes, that is the truth.
Lorsque
When your wife, your mother-in-law, and your son were executed with all of the Vietnamese near the island, had the Vietnamese forces already launched their major offensive against Cambodia?
At that time, no, there wasn't. However, I heard that the Vietnamese was accused of infiltration, and later on, yes, Vietnamese arrived in Cambodian territory, and I knew that they came to liberate us and to overthrow the Khmer rules, and that we would survive.
D'accord, en fait, il y a eu
There were two assaults at the end of 77 and the beginning of 78, and I think you're probably referring to the second one, which is the one that actually toppled the regime. Now, I'm in fact talking about the first of two attacks on from Vietnam. Was your wife killed before or after the first attack?
ដើមបណ្ដារំនេះគាត់អត់ទាន់ឆ្លើយតបសូមអញ្ជើញ
President, Mr. Civil Party, please hold on, and Council Kong Samon, you have the floor. Kong Samon, thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make my observation. It seemed that the Deputy Co-Prosecutor actually testified on behalf of the Civil Party on the attack by the Vietnamese troop. And in one of the last questions by the Co-Prosecutor, whether the Vietnamese troops had already attacked Cambodia. It would be very difficult for the Civil Party to respond to that question. He was in a location, he would not have the knowledge about any attack by the Vietnamese troop in any part of the country. So it would be better if the co-prosecutor is more specific and only refer to the location where he lived.
bien.
Very well, let me do this another way, Mr. President. I'll read some extracts from the Civil Party application E3/4989. In French, it's page 00891035. English, 00891032, and in Khmer, 00556217. And at that point, you said, at the end of 1977 and the beginning of 1978, the Khmer Rouge applied their policy to arrest and execute the Vietnamese. And on the following page in French, and in English it's 00891034, and in Khmer 00556218. You said, let me say that the policy of seeking out Vietnamese to execute them was applied at the time of the aggression by Vietnamese armed forces in the Cambodian territory. Do these words refresh your memory about the precise time when your wife, mother-in-law and son were executed?
Of course, it was painful for me for the loss of my family members, and part of my memory was lost because every night at that time I dreamed of my wife and children, and for that my health has been deteriorated since. So I would like to apologize to the chamber if I cannot recall what happened. President, civil party, please try to listen to the question carefully, and if you do not understand the question, you can ask the question to be repeated. And Deputy Co-Prosecutor, please repeat your last question, as it seems the civil party does not get your question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, actually, I was just quoting what you said in the application as a civil party, and you said that it was at the end of 77 or the beginning of 1978 when the Vietnamese attacked Cambodia that there was a policy implemented to arrest and execute the Vietnamese. So does this refresh your memory about the exact time when your wife and other members of your family were executed?
I still do not get your question. Please refresh it.
Je crois que par manque.
Well, time is short, Mr. President, so we can move on. It doesn't matter, Mr. Civil Party. You, in fact, talked about a Khmer Rouge policy to seek out, arrest and execute Vietnamese people. Earlier on today, you weren't very clear. Did you yourself hear anything on the radio about this, or did you hear cadres talking about it, or talking about a radio broadcast about the Vietnamese?
They asked me that in my cooperative were there any Vietnamese, and I told them that I did not see any. And then I was asked whether were there any other ethnicities there, and I said I was not aware of any. And after a few questions, then they stopped asking me about that.
Pardon, je voudrais aborder.
In the little time we have remaining, I want to go on to a different subject, which is the subject of marriage. Now, can you tell us what you know about arranged marriages in 1977 and 1978, arranged by Democratic Kampuchea cadres?
At that time, the cadre who was the unit chief sent me to cut some trees in order to make tools to catch fish. And I was with the district cadres, and also there were cadres from the district. They refer to as District 20. I was called to go with them, and they told me that at this hour, this day, that I had to go and meet them in the cooperative. And I was thinking what I did wrong. Maybe I stole something, and they later on learned about that. And the person was the village, was the district chief who told me to go there. So I was afraid. Later on, I saw them cut trees and made some poles. And then they kind of build a table on top of the poles. I was there to have them, and then I saw some rice cake there, and we only was given a piece of rice cake each. And then we learned that it was an arranged marriage ceremony, and we, the men and the women, did not know anything about that. Later on, we were asked to make to say some words. I was feeling rather uncertain. I was a bit excited, a bit worried. I was asked to speak first, and then I said that Anka, who organized our wedding ceremony, rather I was told that Anka organized our wedding ceremony, and that we should maintain the marriage as a part of the larger family. And that the larger family was the composition of smaller families, and that we should stay together despite the work that we have to do. Later on, I asked a person how the wedding ceremony was arranged, and then I was told that they actually asked if we actually consent to the marriage, and if not, then we will be taken away to the forest and killed. That is the essence of what I can recall from the arranged marriage at the time.
Now, this ceremony that you attended, tell us how many couples were getting married on that day. Answer briefly, please.
There were 25 couples.
Est-ce que vous savez?
Do you know whether within these couples people had chosen each other to get married, or had the choices been made by other people?
The cadres from the unit made the proposal, but we ourselves did not propose. However, some actually made a proposal to the cadres, while the majority of the couples were chosen by the cadres themselves.
Est-ce qu'il y a donc
Among the 25 couples, were there young people who found out who they were going to be married to on the day of their wedding? I do believe that you did say that, but could you just confirm it for us, please?
When I asked them around, nobody knew who would be his or her future husband or wife. Of course, I did not have an opportunity to ask every man and woman there. I only asked those who were sitting next to me, and they said that we were called by Anka to attend that meeting, and they were not aware that they were to get married.
est-ce que
Did the people who were going to get married have to enter into a commitment before Ankar, and did some of them decide to refuse to get married?
during the marriage ceremony, each couple had to go and make a speech, and nobody dared to protest whether he or she wanted to get married. And they would only praise Angkar for organizing such a wedding, and that we would never forget about the nature of our work, although we constantly had to think about the small family as well as the big family.
After the marriage ceremony that you attended, the commitment undertaken before Angkar, did couples have to live together, and did they have to consummate the marriage?
That night, cadres would spy on the newly married couples, and actually some couples were caught as they refused to consummate the marriage, or that they were shy so that they would not consummate the marriage. And from my recollection, there were two couples who were caught not to consummate the marriage, and the rest, although they might or might not consummate the marriage, they kept quiet.
Est-ce que
What happened to the two couples who were arrested? Were they threatened? Were they punished?
I heard that they were not punished, but they were re-educated once. They were advised by Angkar to consume their marriage and to live together and not to blame Angkar. And later on, I did not know what happened to them.
At the marriage ceremony, apart from you, were there Khmer Rouge cadres who made speeches, and what did they say to the people who were there? Did they give them instructions of any kind?
After we spoke, cadres who were in charge of organizing the marriage made a speech. They said that we had to follow the instructions of Angkar, and for that reason they organized this wedding ceremony, and whether we were satisfied with the arrangement, and we said yes, and then they said we had to follow and abide by all the instructions by Angkar. And that's all I heard, and then I went to sleep.
Juste dernière question.
Just to follow up to make sure that I have understood this correctly, you attended that marriage ceremony, but you yourself didn't get remarried that day, I understand. But can you tell us when you did get married a second time? Was it during the Khmer Rouge regime or was it subsequently?
I remarried in 1979 after the arrival of the Vietnamese in Kampong Chnang province, and actually the marriage ceremony was conducted according to the traditional way. President, thank you. The proceedings today has come to an adjournment. For that reason, the chamber will adjourn now and resume tomorrow, that is Thursday, 3rd December 2015, commencing from 9 o'clock in the morning. Tomorrow, the chamber continues to hear the testimony of this civil party and commence hearing testimony of another witness, that is through TCW 886. And Mr. Dun the chamber is grateful of your testimony. However, it is not yet concluded, and you're invited to be present again in the courtroom at 9 tomorrow. And the chamber would like also to thank you, the TPRO staff, and please come again tomorrow to provide support to the civil party. Court officer, please, in collaboration with WISU, make a transportation arrangement for the civil party to go to his accommodation and have him return to attend the proceeding tomorrow from 9 o'clock in the morning. Security personnel, you are instructed to take the two accused back to the detention facility and have them returned to attend the hearing tomorrow before 9 o'clock in the morning. The court is now adjourned.